Welcome back. I wanted to give an update on some of the things that I'm trying in my game to be more immersive. One of the things I mentioned in a recent video is that I was asking my players for suggestions of what types of adventures or obstacles they'd like to face. It was a bit of a brainstorming session so that players can give me their thoughts. And one of the things that came in, I hadn't really done a session like this, so I wanted to give my impressions on how it went. As well as maybe some of the pitfalls that we could fall into. They had suggested that they wanted to do a murder mystery, in a Wild West setting, someone that's accused of a crime, or there was someone that died, and a whole plethora of potential subjects or suspects, I should say, that could have committed the crime. So it was a big challenge for me. I haven't done anything quite like this. Had some concerns about it, to be honest. I was a little concerned in running a murder mystery in a role-playing game. I didn't want it to just become this, you play through the Agatha Christie novel. I didn't want that to be the case. I haven't read a whole lot of mystery. I've read some mystery, of course, the classics, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I've read all those. A little bit of some of the other stuff, but nothing too in depth in the actual mystery side of things. And so I was a little worried about it. It made me think of how I could come up with some interesting characters that have each of them have their own secret. And I wanted to give it some thought, some personality for these NPCs that could be guilty of the crime. And I was having a bit of a creative block when I was doing this. And it made me think of one of the commenters had mentioned that we were talking about using, it was maybe a straight live stream or something. I apologize. I can't remember the exact context of when the comment was made, but they had said that they do a bit of a character synopsis or those kind of things with an AI large language model like ChatGPT. So I thought I would try it. I hadn't ever used it for something like this. And I want to share with you what it created, which I think was somewhat useful, and then what I did with it to make it more relevant to the setting that we're playing, this Wild West setting. So here's what it created. It created this synopsis that there was a murder of an influential cattle rancher, and it gave the name of the cattle rancher, and it gave a little bit of information. You can see that right up here. Sudden murder of an influential cattle rancher. So there's the premise. And I'm thinking, you know what? I can work with that. I can work with the cattle rancher aspect. This is someone who has significant assets, a lot of power, a lot of clout, and a lot of connections with other people in the area. And then it gave a list here, as you can see, of other potential suspects, including the sheriff of town. Now, I had to change some of the names to fit because some of these NPCs are pre-existing NPCs. They would be they're characters that I had already introduced to the players through other adventures that we've run. And we've been running this. I hesitate to call it a campaign. I suppose it is a campaign, but what it is I try to do almost like a serial. So it's episodic. And that started off because we had some players that I didn't know how long they would be with us in the game group. And I didn't want to have a situation where we got into something that was taking multiple sessions to surpass it or overcome a certain obstacle or find something or have an adventure. And some of the players would only get just the opening episode of that, the opening sortie of, this is what it was, but they wouldn't get that payoff and then it had a bit of a resolution of some kind. So that's why it's been episodic. But I have introduced a lot of these characters before, and so what I did is I would change a little bit what the AI did. Now I'm going to just highlight a couple of these to show you now this is GPT 3.5. I know there's a more current version, but my understanding is that there's the 4.0 it's better in some ways, it's worse in others. And I just did this, it was free and it was fast. So you can see here a little bit about these. So I took this one here. Okay. So this is Elias Blackjack Turner, right? Notorious gambler and outlaw. I'm going to use this as an example because I didn't alter this one very much. So this is the AI's idea of a potential suspect. And I won't read it all. That would be incredibly dull, but you can see it. You can read it there on the screen. Long-standing conflicts. There's some talk about gambling debt. That made me think of things like, okay, well, maybe the night that the murder happened, there was a high-stakes poker game going on in the saloon, and that sort of thing. So I thought it was kind of cool. And then I had a bit of a monkey wrench thrown into the whole thing because my son and his wife decided that they were going to come back and for the week that I was going to run this game. And of course I was like, well, I asked my son, do you want to be part of this game? Or shall we introduce you? Would you like to drop in for this? I told him what we were doing. We're doing a bit of a murder mystery. And then a longstanding player that's going through some health challenges, he was able, with his treatments, he was still able to come to the game. So I had these extra players come and they needed some characters. So what I did is I pulled some of the characters that had been introduced by the ChatGPT as options for two of these players to come in and play. And that seemed to work okay, especially when it casts some doubt as to whether or not the player themselves was guilty of the crime. And what was fun about that is that I was interested to see if the players took that and ran with it. Like maybe, and I was quite prepared to say, yeah, if you said you did it, you did it. Like you committed the crime. As the rest of the party is trying to figure out, and there's a bit of I tried to put a time crunch on this because it's an investigation session. They're going to be talking to a lot of these suspects, trying to find more information. They uncover one secret, it leads to something else, but then it's maybe a red herring. And I still wanted it to move. I wanted the pacing to be fairly quick. So I imposed some time limitations from the world side of things. Like, this is, there's these people are only going to be here this night. They only have, or this next day or whatever it is. They're not going to be, they don't live in the area. Some of them, they'll be leaving. You have to find out if they're guilty before long. It's a large influential cattle ranch, but I said, they're right in the season where they're starting the cattle drive to move the livestock to auction, and that has to happen now, and they can't wait. And so there's, that sort of thing I tried to do, and it went okay. So this is okay. It's pretty. Now, this is my first attempt doing this, and I have since tried it one more time, and I realized, okay, so there's not a lot of variation that I can see, and this could be a problem with the prompting that I'm giving the AI, so I can't throw it completely under the bus. I mean, who cares? It's just, software. But it helped me overcome a bit of a creative block and gave me some ideas as to who could have been the culprit. And a bit of a spoiler alert. I mean, we've already played it, so I'm not really spoiling anything. But the actual guilty party was not on this list. This was, interesting and characters, and they had other things going on. Some of them were very much involved in nefarious activities that the players were able to find out in their investigations with their characters, and it was surprisingly fun. It was totally different from our normal sessions. And it continues on here. So there's sometimes what the AI does in these, and I didn't spend a whole lot of time on this, but what it did is it would say, well, there's some mysterious person or a new woman has come in, and it's, and then so I had to prompt it again to say, okay, well, tell me more about the mysterious woman or the dashing gunslinger. I need to know more about them. And that created some more NPCs, which I was able to use. Now, the description of the NPCs is pretty generic. For example, Caleb Morgan, the dashing gunslinger. Well, sharp wit, roguish charm. Not a whole lot of real distinguishing features that I would say, okay, this is. I had to think of characters that I think would fit well with the overall theme here, this trope. And the same thing with the the femme fatale, like Rose Monroe. Pretty, striking beauty, enigmatic demeanor, but that's it. That's about it. Like, that doesn't give you a whole lot more than that. So it's enough. It's, in my opinion, it's a good tool because it's enough to get the creative juices flowing, so to speak. Like, you can start to imagine, okay, what about this? Well, what about that terrible secret that Dr. Abigail Turner is harboring? And we had some fun with that. So a very different session. And I am glad that I ended up trying out this AI large language model, ChatGPT, to get some help with just getting off the ground in a mystery that I hadn't really done a whodunit murder mystery type session before, and neither had any of the players. So it was a new experience for all of us, and that was really exciting. We had a lot of fun with it, and I would say, if you're like me and sometimes you just need that little nudge, what kind of cast do you want, and what could be some of the connections here? And it's fun, of course, to come up with that all, by yourself. And I like to do that too. But sometimes just that little bit, not so much that it becomes a crutch, but enough to get things going, I think is a good tool. I suspect I'll use it again. I have tried it. I tried it again for this week's game, so last night's game. Found that it was not, maybe it was my prompting, but it wasn't quite as useful as it was for the murder mystery. Now, will I run another murder mystery in the near future? Probably not. Not like this. The problem I found with it, even though it seemed like everyone had a good time, the problem is that it felt a little too much like they were playing through a story where they were just trying to discover the story, but discover a story that was already written instead of one that we were all creating together. And my solution for this, if and when I do another murder mystery session, will be that I myself have no clue who did it. And based on I'll have a similar type thing where I've got a cast of potential suspects, all of which look just as guilty as sin. All of them have motive, and most of them have either all of them have alibis or none of them have alibis. And then we'll just discover who it was together instead of me already knowing at the onset, well, who was the murderer in this case? Who murdered this cattleman? Anyway, so that's a quick update. I wanted to give this update. Appreciate all of the people that have joined these videos. I hope that you find something useful in them. Please leave a comment down below, and share it with your group if you feel like, hey, maybe we should try a murder mystery. I'd love to hear if someone else has done a murder mystery like this, especially in a Wild West setting. Like who there's a body found at night after a big loud argument in a saloon over a high stakes game of poker. Who was the one who shot him? Like that was the basic premise of our session. And I don't know if that sounds like something that's interesting, then yeah, maybe you can give it a shot and tell me how it goes. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks. Bye.